It was 40 years ago, back in 1983, that Toyota set itself the task of creating a luxury car brand to take on the world's best from Mercedes, BMW and Jaguar. 6 years later, that assault on the North American and European markets commenced with this, the LS400, a sublime V8-powered luxury saloon to take on the likes of the S-Class, 7 Series and XJ. Now, over 30 years on, how has the LS400 fared? And is it too soon to call it a classic? Well, we thought we'd take a drive in this splendid 1992 example to find out.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
So it was back in the early 80s that the Toyota chairman, E.G. Toyoda, set the company the task of creating a luxury car brand. That was to become Lexus. It was there to really challenge the established rivals, Mercedes S-Class, Jaguar XJ, BMW 7 Series. They wanted to make a car that was luxurious, prestigious, refined, but crucially also long-lasting. They wanted a car that would feel brand new even at 50,000 miles. And of course, all the base ingredients were there. I mean, Toyota had a phenomenal reputation for reliability, but with Lexus they just took it to an all-new level. The attention to detail was second to none. It was clear from day one that Lexus wanted this to be the absolute best it could be, and no expense was spared in the development. So much attention was paid to the noise and vibration, or rather eliminating it through the drivetrain, removing any sounds of squeaks and rattles from the cabin. In fact, Toyota created no fewer than 450 prototypes and covered over 4 million kilometers of testing to ensure that the car was as good as it could be. So the LS400, as we now know it, the luxury sedan 400, was unveiled at the Detroit Motor Show in 1988. It just got a phenomenal reception. Motoring journalists were full of praise for the car in terms of how it drove and how refined it was. North America probably took it more to its heart than Europe did, loyal to our homegrown cars from the likes of Jaguar, Mercedes or BMW. But it was well received, and the car industry itself sat up and took note of quite what a thoroughly engineered piece of kit this was. The 4-litre V8 is an all-aluminium 32-valve quad-cam engine. It had hydropneumatic engine mounts to ensure that there was no vibration being transmitted through to the cabin. Drive was through an electronically controlled 4-speed automatic gearbox. The ECU for the engine and the gearbox were kind of synchronized. The ignition timing would be retarded ever so slightly and in microseconds to make the gear change even smoother than it would have otherwise been. The rear differential is a bespoke unit, 30% more teeth and a third tighter tolerances than would have been previously considered industry best, to ensure that there's no noise or whir from the back. And of course it would last a lifetime. They were using the very latest welding techniques to reduce unsightly weld lines, but also ensuring a stiff, taut body shell. There's fully independent suspension, double wishbones up front, delivering an absolutely sublime cosseting ride. Yamaha were brought in to produce some of the gloss finishes on the dash. These special backlit gauges were specially designed to reduce fatigue on long journeys, obviously late at night. The factory that produced the LS400 won awards for being the most fault-free factory in the world. No wonder Toyota spent best part of $1 billion developing this car.
After years of intense work, Lexus is ready to celebrate. Because even at the equivalent of 145 miles per hour, the Lexus LS400 is designed to stir the soul, and not much else.
The styling may have been a bit derivative. They were clearly sort of trying to ape that kind of slightly presidential looking S-Class with its big grille and its sort of stately 3-box shape. 30 plus years on, it's aged rather well. It has got timeless elegance to it. And what is it like to drive? Well, absolutely extraordinary. As I say, it just feels brand new, despite being well over 30 years old. The engine is inaudible. I mean, we're doing 50 miles an hour. If I put my foot down, there is a very, very distant V8 thrum. You know it's a V8. You still can't hear it. It's so smooth. There's not a growl that you might have got out of an equivalent Jaguar V8. The suspension is absolutely magnificent. This road surface is a typical British A/B road. It's rough and it's pitted, and yet this is smothering it. We are gliding over it. I just think this is probably the best suspension setup this side of a Citroen that you'll ever find. I've never felt more relaxed driving a car. And look, we're doing 30 now. It's like the engine's not even on. It's phenomenal. The handling isn't anything to write home about. A BMW 7 Series or a Jaguar XJ would feel much sportier. But I don't think that was the Lexus's intention. I think it was always meant to be about comfort and refinement. The switchgear's beautifully damped, lasted really well. It's plastic, but it's high quality plastic, and the buttons are damped to perfection, as are the stalks and the controls. I could just imagine covering hundreds, if not thousands of miles in one of these and not even noticing. You can totally understand why the likes of Jaguar, BMW and Mercedes were worried. While those companies have got their kind of credibility for just being these historic marks, the LS400 as a new boy just ripped up the rule book. It said, no, we can do this. We can do what you're doing and better. And while sales may not have set the world on fire, both in the US and in the UK, customers were full of praise for not just the dealer service, but for the competence of the product. It's hard to imagine labelling Toyota a David out of a David and Goliath story. But in the case of Lexus, it kind of was. And I think in so many ways, they produced a superior car. And it certainly forced those European manufacturers to up their game in the 90s. So I posed a question at the start of the video, whether it's too soon to call a Lexus LS400 a classic. Make no mistake, the LS400 is an absolute landmark car in automotive history. It proved just how good cars can be when they've given a no-compromise approach to their engineering. So one day, we will look at the LS400 as a proper classic. Toyota, Lexus, just at its absolute finest. A 5-star luxury saloon that's up there with the best of them.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.